Hey guys, welcome to Mom's the Word. This is Paige.
This is Cindy.
And today we're going to be talking about a very triggering topic, so we'd like to insert a trigger warning here today for child loss. We hope that you enjoy this episode.
Bye, guys. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome. Hello and happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Hello, you guys.
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Well, I'm Cindy.
And I'm Paige.
And this is Mom's the Word, where Mom knows best.
Or at least she's trying her best.
We are.
We are, indeed.
Really are.
I'm so excited for today. Y'all don't even know. This is a very special friend of mine and someone who has had quite the motherhood journey that I feel privileged she's going to share with us today. This is my friend Erica.
Hey, Erica.
Hello, everyone.
So happy you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Of course. So Cindy has never met Erica.
Nope.
So I'm going to kind of let her take the reins here on questions, and I will maybe guide her into some things that I know will spark conversation. But yeah, we just want to hear all about your motherhood journey. How many children do you have?
Yeah, that's where I wanted to start.
Okay. So I have 3 biological children and 2 bonus children.
Right. Bonus through marriage, bonus through adoption.
Bonus 1 through adoption. Actually, I would say 2 through adoption. I guess.
Yeah, if that's where
I would say it makes sense. Yeah. 5 children in all.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So my oldest son and my middle son have passed away.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So that's what makes this journey quite interesting.
Yeah. So were you a young mom? How old was your oldest? Yeah, explain that a little bit.
So Donovan actually would be turning 30 this July.
Oh,
can you believe it?
He's our age.
No, he's not. Like, there's no way. My brain, he's still Donovan. Okay, so just to preface, I know Donovan from the military, and then as well as his little goofy self walked into my state farm. I was working through college at a state farm and selling insurance, and so he would come in. I never knew anybody who loved to spend time with their insurance agent, but because we were friends and knew each other, he would stop in, and so we just became pretty tight friends there, close to his passing.
Yeah.
And so then I met Erica following that, which we'll get into much later in the details of that sense. But I knew Donovan personally, so.
Which is the connection here.
Yes.
So y'all knew each other. Yeah.
Yes.
So you had Donovan.
Yes.
And how old were you when you had Donovan?
I was 3 weeks shy of 21.
Okay. Young mama.
Yes, very young. Thinking back on it now, I'm like, I didn't know shit. I had no business having a baby.
Yeah.
They think we're old enough to. We think we're old enough to anyways. We start making big adult decisions, not realizing the consequences that are coming in with it.
Yeah. Thought I was old enough to conquer the world. Was not.
And then after that?
And then 20 months later, I had Austin.
Okay.
And he was the oldest child I've ever known. I think I reincarnated an old man.
Oh my gosh. I hear that some kids have an old soul. Austin was an old soul.
Totally an old soul. He definitely was. My dad felt like they were best friends.
Aww. I love that.
Yeah, and then Jordan, who is now 21. So there was a gap in between the boys. And I love being a boy mom.
Yeah.
It was my most favorite thing.
So first 2 boys, and then you had your third.
Yes, and he was a boy also. So I was like, oh my God.
You were full in.
I was all in. I'm like, this boy thing is where it's at. I had nieces, and I was like, hair, bows, pink. No.
Stuff.
I feel like moms go all in. Once you've had your third, you're like, that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a mom to boys, and that's okay.
Yep.
Because some people are like, well, don't you want a girl? And you're like, well, this is what I'm doing, and I love all my babies.
And
so.
you commit. You commit to it.
Yeah.
You weren't forever a mom of boys, though.
No. So my husband's niece, we found out that, we knew her mom was heavily into drugs. And around when she was 12, I looked at him one day and I said, we're getting involved.
Good for
and
you.
he thought I meant with her mom and her. And I was like, no, she's going to have to do her own thing, find her path to sobriety.
She's an adult.
She's an adult, but we're definitely going to get involved. She has a younger brother, but there's 2 different dads. And I wanted to get involved with both, but the grandmother was reluctant to let me.
Okay.
Because she didn't have rights to that little boy. So we got involved with Kayla, and that girl thing, man, that's different.
Oh, yeah.
And Kayla's not.
I was there when Kayla first integrated.
How old was Kayla at that time?
She was 12 when we started visiting with her, but she came to live with us after Donovan passed, and she was turning 16.
Okay.
Which was
teenage years.
16-year-old girl
Yeah.
who had quite a bit of trauma and who had been through a
Oh,
lot.
absolutely.
And then went into a household with Erica and her husband Lou, who are, fantastic parents, very structured.
Very old school.
Structured old school parents. So it's different environment.
So
can
different. I mean, her grandmother, she was being raised by her great grandmother, actually.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So she was fighting with her to go to school, to, just get her to the dentist,
Yeah.
regular stuff. And I was like, no, we're not having that. I'm not doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also I was focused on don't get pregnant. Like,
Yeah.
Yes,
please.
yes, that's such a fear.
Like, don't do it on my watch. So there was so much emotion around going from, okay, aunt, and we made this transition. So we're Uncle Lou and Erica initially, and then she started calling us mom and pop, and then to mom and dad. Like, and now we're fully mom and dad.
So it took a long time for her to come and live with you guys.
Yes.
But you were there through all those years.
Yes.
Wow.
We were there through all of it. She didn't want to let go of California. She's still to this day a California girl. And now she lives in Colorado, so it's so funny. She reps California to her core.
Yeah. That had to have been hard.
Especially
Very
a
hard.
16-year-old
Yeah,
girl
that's what I was
living
thinking.
in California where there's palm trees and the beach and all this stuff. And then there's like, you're going to go to Texas to live on a ranch with your very structured auntie and uncle.
Very rural, cow town,
Yes,
Texas.
they have a farm.
Culture shock.
Yes,
So it was
extreme.
definitely different.
She came from a high school of 3,000 students to, I think there were 75 in
dogfight?
her class.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
she was
yeah.
like, what is this place?
Please don't leave me here.
Yeah. So that's hard because she's already experienced a ton of trauma, and then to be uprooted into a whole new area that is very culture shock, because I am also from California. And so I do know the culture shock that
Yes.
it is here. And it's wonderful, and the people are wonderful here, but it's a lot different. Do you feel like that's what she needed, though? Or does she agree with that
100%.
too now that she's older?
Yes,
You
she
got to
does.
see. Okay, that's good.
Do you want
Yeah,
to say how
she-
old Kayla is now?
Kayla is now 25.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she's a mom. Actually, we're about to have baby number 2 next
Aw,
month.
congratulations,
Yeah,
Kayla.
she's going to have her second little girl.
That's
Girl,
amazing.
mom.
Payback is real. That's all I got to say.
So then after
it is.
Kayla,
So Danielle
okay.
was Donovan's girlfriend, not at the time of his passing, high school.
Okay.
Probably his
And-
most serious relationship
Yes.
outside of his last one.
Yes, right before he went into the military, he was dating Danielle. And he knows how I am about the girlfriends. I'm like, I don't want to get attached. You do your thing.
Yeah.
We don't need to be involved. But that boy was so proud of his family. He just wanted to integrate everyone into our lives. And right before he left for boot camp, he's like, Mom, I told Danielle she can come over every weekend. And I was like, why? But now she and I have the best relationship. We talk every single day.
That's what I was going to say.
She's 31 now. She has a relationship with her mom, and so that's why I wouldn't always say like that we have totally adopted her like we have Kayla, because I wanted to respect her
Yeah.
relationship with her mom. But it's not that great, and she has zero relationship with her dad.
Right.
So she is 100% like Lou's walking me down the aisle. Lou is my father, and I was kind of like bonus mom. But now I think I'm more full time. Like she comes to me for so much like a mom.
Yes, and
You
I think
know.
that you can have somebody who has a biological mom. Like, yes, she is my mom, but I also have like my Aunt Nellie is my person.
Yeah.
So like if I'm upset or I'm sad or I'm spiraling, like I will call her, and she's the maternal figure for me. So she would say like, "Oh, I have Paige is one of my daughters."
Right.
So she would just it makes sense,
Yeah.
especially 'cause y'all are even closer than even my situation. Y'all are extremely close to the point. Like Danielle comes to Thanksgiving.
Oh.
To Christmas, like
All the things.
this is her family. This
Oh, yeah.
is who she's with, and she lives out in California as well. But she'll travel to Texas multiple times a year just to be able to be part of birthdays and
Oh, yeah.
all this stuff. So
That's so
yeah.
interesting to me because, you all lost someone really important, and now that she's still in your life and enjoying her milestones, which is really amazing and big of you to do, because sometimes like when you lose someone so important, it's easy to let go of those people too, because it reminds you so much of your
Right.
son.
Right.
And so like that's big of you to like accept her fully, and like that's an experience you guys had to go through together.
I used to joke with Donovan because when he started that, and the whole time he was away at boot camp, and she'd be over, and I would say, "Look, if this goes south, you're going to learn to love that girl like your sister. Once I get committed, I'm committed. You know, I don't quit people.
Yeah.
You forced
You know,
this.
without reason. Yes.
Yeah.
So when they did break up, which was long before he passed, he's like, Mom, you got to let her go. And I'm like, I warned you.
She's stuck.
I warned you.
Yeah.
And she came, I mean, the day she found out, she jumped on a plane just like all the rest of my family did to come out here and support us.
Wow.
And that's when it's like, it really solidified. Like, she's this girl's part of our family, like forever.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's a sensitive topic, obviously, and a topic that'll never be without pain. But do you want to talk about what happened with Austin?
Absolutely. This is the thing about my journey. It's not as painful for me as it once was. I am a certified grief specialist. So through the experience of losing the boys, I found my healing through that journey. So it sounds really weird, but I love to talk about grief. Does that make sense?
It's part of your story.
And somebody has to, because it's hard for a lot of people.
Exactly.
So it's important for you to like talking about it.
Yes. And so it's like, it has to start somewhere that we have to normalize this.
Yes.
And because this career chose me, that's my mission, is to make it not weird and awkward or super painful to talk about it.
Yeah.
So in 2006, Austin went to Lake Havasu with my current husband, but we were separated at the time. Never thought we'd be back together. We're like, no, this is, for me, I was like, I'm done with this.
And they're so meant to be together, too. It's very funny.
We had secretly started talking right before the trip. And so I was supposed to go. And I don't know, something about us, we hadn't had the conversation of like, where's this going? But we kind of like touched on it a little bit right before the trip. And he's like, you know, if you find something else out there, you need to take it. And I was like, red flag. I'm not going on this trip. I'm not going. So I backed out at the last minute. And it was for Father's Day weekend. This is a family trip that we had been taking since Austin was in diapers. So I was well versed with how it went, the structure of it, everything. They start out, every day would be a different area. They'd go out on the boats. And on this one particular day, they went to this area called London Bridge, where it's like a cruising area for all the new boats. Like everyone, all it reminds me of like Tim the Tool Man, like the more, you know, the more torque, the better on the boat. Like you just want to show it off.
Yeah.
And Austin was playing at the back of the boat. You can park on the sides, and they were doing who can hold their breath the longest. So he was taking in these deep breaths. That area is man-made, so it doesn't get the natural wind flow like all the other areas on the lake. So he was overcome by carbon monoxide. Right before he passed out in the water, my nephew, who never left Austin's side, they were like twins, had to go to the bathroom. And my sister-in-law was like, it's weird because he had to take a shit. She was like, he never goes to the bathroom in public places.
Yeah.
Donovan was with them. He got out to go get lunch. Another cousin's son was there, and he went to do whatever. And Austin was left at the back of the boat, so he passed out. When Austin came back from the restroom, when Keith Michael came back, he's looking for Austin. And after about the third time, Keith Michael said, you know, Dad, where's Austin? My brother, who at the time was LAPD, just yelled, everybody, stop. We need to put eyes on Austin. And they all started looking. And it was probably about 30 to 40 minutes. They weren't gaining any ground. And they went to the lifeguard or whatever. And then they shut down the area. And they're like, we're going to have to bring in the divers. And as soon as the diver went in, he found him immediately.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So you received a phone call.
Yes. So I had just moved into a new apartment. Like I said, convinced I'm just going to be this single girl, like, you know, Sex and the City revamp, right? I had a girlfriend come over, and we were going to just have this whole day. I had left my house for the first time since cell phones were invented without my cell phone. So I come home to 19 missed calls. And in that, my family, who's very large, it means tragedy.
Yeah.
But I automatically thought my dad died because my dad was older. He had health problems. It's the natural order of things. So when I called my mom's house, my sister, bless her heart, tried to do that whole fake, like, hi, honey.
Sharon.
Where are you? No, this was Charlene.
Oh.
Yes. Where are you? And I was like, okay, she's going to tell me my dad died. And I was like, I was getting a manicure. And she's like, okay. And then I just hear silence and kind of this rustling. And I'm like, what's going on? So Sharon gets on the phone. And she says, Erica, they can't find Austin. She said, we're going to get a flight to Havasu, and I'm going to come and pick you up. So I'm like, okay. So as soon as I hang up the phone, I'm walking around, and I'm like putting the most random things in this bag.
Yeah,
I think
you're
I
on
grabbed a
autopilot.
candle.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
It was like a can of tuna. Like, I don't know. I'm like, just in my head is like,
He's missing.
yeah, what does this mean? I'm looking at the time.
What do I do?
It's going to get dark. What if they don't find him before it's dark? That's all what was
And you're
going
not
in my
thinking.
head. Never.
You're not thinking he passed away.
Actually, Sharon says that I said to her, do you think he drowned? And she immediately dismissed it. She's like, no way. So then.
You're thinking he wandered off.
Yes, that's what I was. Or like, then I'm like, oh my God, he was kidnapped. But then I was like, they'll bring him back. It's not a problem. They will bring him right back. So she gets to the door, and it's my two sisters and her husband. And she looks at me and she says, they found him. And I like a half a second of relief. And then she followed right behind with, he drowned. And it was like a scene out of a movie. I just took off running. And the apartment was, although I thought it was so spacious at the time, I like ran into the wall immediately and then just dropped to my knees and started screaming this like crazy scream like you see in a movie.
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law just scooped me up. He's like 6'4".
Yeah.
And he just started praying, like, God, please help her. Please give her comfort. Please show her peace. Like just praying for God to show me the way. And in that moment, I just thought, my life will never be the same again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably thought you would never be the same again.
I totally thought I would never be the same.
I don't think you ever will be.
I'm not. I will never be the same. I'm as close as I'm going to get, though. And I'm still, like, living.
You're not broken.
No, I was.
Yeah.
I was broken. But I found healing, and I thought, okay, I can do this. And after, going through the program, which is what I teach as a grief specialist, I was, like, so in love with it. I got certified. And Sharon and I were like, oh my God, she got certified as well, because we both had this like life-changing experience. And we're like, in 2015, we're going to join forces. We're going to conquer this grief thing together. We are going to do this. And we got recertified out here in Texas. She flew out here. We had the best weekend. I was really butting heads with Donovan. He was in another relationship, a not so good relationship.
He was rebellious.
Oh my God.
If you knew Lou and Donovan, you would understand this dynamic. Lou is that dad that just an incredible man that has high standards.
Oh, yeah.
And Donovan wanted to reach that bar and then beyond some. So they butted heads a lot.
Yes.
And then Erica was like his best friend, like his mommy, situation. Like they were like very, very close.
Yeah.
So he would kind of lean in on her in those like moments. So he was just that kid that was in that stage of life where he knew everything.
Oh.
And y'all were so wrong.
Oh my God.
y'all couldn't be more wrong about life.
At 21, again, thinking I knew everything at 21 when he came into this world, he was following in my footsteps. So from my perspective, I would always say to Lou, like, don't you remember being 21? He acted like he was 40 and crawling out of his mom's badge with good credit. Like, no, like, you know what I mean? Like, he never was like young. And I'm like, you were young. Identify with that. Embrace it. So when Sharon came out, we decided to do good cop, bad cop. Like she was really like leaning in and like trying to show him, you're not old enough to get married, dude. Like, no, take that off the table. And she was 18. He's not, neither one of them had careers. Like it was just like not going to work out. So 2 days after Sharon and I doing this training, we fly back to California. We have this 4th of July celebration planned at my brother's house. It's going to be a great weekend. And the next morning, again, starts with a phone call.
A phone call.
Very early, but Lou gets the call. He acts very casual. But I noticed like he's putting on his clothes and he's going out in the hallway. And I'm like, that's weird. But Jordan and I keep watching TV. And he calls me. He's like, Erica. But there's no hint of anything in his voice.
Right. He's trying to keep it as
so normal.
calmest
And I
person.
walked out in the hallway, and he's like, your brother and sister on the phone. So I'm like, okay. So I get on the phone, and I go, what? Very smart-ass little sister. And then there's silence, and I'm like, hello? And then I guess the deal was my brother was going to say the words this time.
So
And
Sharon didn't have
he-
to always be the sister telling you.
And he just fell apart. He couldn't do it. And so she says, Erica, Donovan was killed in a motorcycle accident. Oh, my God. And I was like, no, mm-mm. And I gave Lou the phone, and I just like, no.
That's not real.
Nope. No, thank you.
Yeah.
And I just was like,
Been
no.
there, done this. We're not doing this again.
I gave at the office. Like, I'm not doing it
Yeah.
again. And Lewis was like trying to like hold me, and I just was like pushing him away and like, get off me. No. And I just took off running, and I'm in my pajamas down the hall in this hotel in San Diego until I like got to the end of the hall, and I just dropped to my knees, and the sobs, like it sounds feral when it
Yeah, I
comes out of
believe that.
you. It's like, doesn't even sound human.
Yeah.
And he comes to me, and he's trying to get me up, and he's like, getting off the phone. And this guy, I still think about this. This guy opens the door, and the scene, I'm just imagining like the playback.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I better get up before we get arrested. Like Lou's gonna get arrested. And we go back in the hotel, and I go in the bathroom so I don't scare Jordan. And I just put the towel on my face, and I'm just like screaming, trying to compose myself.
Because Jordan is like 14.
Jordan was 12.
Okay, yeah. He was younger.
He was 12.
And it's his big brother.
Who he idolized.
Idolized. Like it was
You have to
everything to
compose
him.
yourself before you can
Yes.
give that to your child.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I foolishly thought, we've done this once, we can do it again. And I'm like,
It doesn't
what an
make it
idiot.
easier.
It does not.
No.
Because even though the same family shares multiple grieving experiences, they're all different because the relationships are different.
Yeah.
And like Paige said, Donovan was me. We talked on the phone every single day. And he had called me that night prior, but we were with Lou's coworkers, so I didn't want to be rude and take the call. So I just texted him and said, hey, we're sitting at the table with Dad's coworkers. I'll call you tomorrow. And tomorrow never came. So then that like haunted me. What if I could have said something to him in that phone call that would have made him see reason not to jump on the motorcycle and drive like a bat out of hell. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what if he would have just heard my voice saying, be
It's okay.
patient.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to give him those words of wisdom. So it took me a long time. One, I dug in the sorrow. I felt like I took Austin's loss very graciously. And I was like, okay, bad things happen. We got to figure it out. With Donovan's, I was like, fuck this.
Because why me again?
the
We're
world
not
down.
doing it.
It feels like-
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I was not going to do it. I was going to be miserable, and everyone was going to be miserable with me. And that's not me. I'm not a dark and twisty. I'm more clownish.
But when you've been through something like that, I think you're fully allowed to be dark and twisty,
Yeah.
and in fact, probably needed to be dark
Oh,
and
yeah.
twisty.
Yeah.
I mean, I really, really had to hit the bottom because it just went on.
Yeah.
Like the excessive drinking,
Yeah.
smoking weed, which I had never really done before. But I
Yeah.
was like, oh, yeah, we're doing this.
To
We're
ea-
committing.
Well, to ease that pain that
Yes.
you felt, you've lost control of everything.
Yes.
And for it to happen twice is just, I can't even put it in words. I'm almost speechless over here as you've talked about both, and I don't even have the words to say. And I'm sure so many people have said, I'm sorry. And what else can you say,
Right.
But it literally, I didn't even experience it. And my heart as a mom,
Yeah.
like I don't cry a lot, but I heart as a mom don't know how I would overcome that. So to see you sit here and talk about your boy so like highly is an amazing thing to look at, because my worst fear is drowning. My worst fear is getting a call saying your son didn't make it. Like that is heartbreaking. And so for you to overcome that is just amazing to hear. And now you can share with other people, because gosh, I couldn't even imagine.
You help other people through that.
Yeah.
I'm going to say probably the most painful thing someone could experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. It's every parent's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Every parent. And the one thing I didn't share earlier is those were Lou's biological children.
Yes.
Jordan is not his.
Yeah.
I got pregnant with Jordan during the separation. So his namesake died with those boys.
Yeah.
And that is like, for the first few weeks after, looking at his eyes, like it was almost like you couldn't look at him because the pain was so much.
Yeah.
And my sister pointed out recently, she was like, he was probably mirroring though what you were feeling. And I never thought that because I could only see his eyes. And they were the saddest eyes I'd ever seen in my life.
Now that you've said that, I didn't even think of your husband. And that's sad to me because here I am feeling your grief as a mom. I didn't even think about how my husband would feel through that.
Yeah.
Like dealing with that grief too had to be so hard for both of you. And then for your husband to see you that way.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was hard. And almost every couple that I have come in contact through teaching this program, they have all gotten divorced.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And that's so common.
Yeah.
It's so common. I mean, I follow a few people online one family that had experienced child loss, and they divorced fairly quickly afterwards. And so I think it's just such a painful thing that it tears people apart.
It does.
Because one person maybe deals with it differently than the other does, and then they don't respect each other's grieving process. And then that can tear you apart whenever it's something that is so important to you. To be able to go through that grief and then to be told by the person who should be feeling it with you that you're too much or you need to handle it differently. That, I mean, I've never been through it, but I can only imagine that if I was forced into healing faster, that it would only pull me away from that person.
Because you hear too that's like, all I see is my son and you. And that sometimes is hard for people to overlook. Like, that's all I see.
Yeah.
And so that has to be really hard. So you guys, amazing that you guys have made it, and you guys are both doing as well as you can, because it's never going to be something.
And still raising children.
Yeah.
And still raising children.
Yeah.
And my question for that is, how do you do that without fear? Without the fear that this could happen again?
Oh, I had fear. Jordan went to California. I felt like he needed to get away. That first, it was like the first few weeks after. I had to go home and take his Xanax after putting him on the plane. Like, I just was like, I just put my last surviving child on an airplane without me. I cried to and from the airport. And Lewis was like, you have to have faith.
Yeah.
You have to have faith.
You can't put him in a bubble.
You can't control it. Exactly. And that's exactly what he said. Everything, as we know and as we've learned, is outside of our control.
Yeah.
And you don't want to live that life. And I didn't want to put that on him.
Right.
I didn't want to stifle his living. It's not.
With your fears.
Right.
What did that look like? So again, when you were, said you had to go to the bathroom and take a moment for yourself, what did it look like explaining to your child that they just lost another brother?
So definitely.
He would be old enough now, because the first time he was like
He was
2.
3.
Yeah.
He was 3.
So the first time he probably doesn't have a whole lot of memory of Austin,
Right.
but Donovan was big brother.
Oh, yeah. And he says, and that was my goal. I kept Austin alive for him. It was so important for us to talk about him so that Jordan would know his brother. So he's like, even though I don't remember him, I feel like I remember those things because you guys talked about him so much.
Yeah.
So I love that. I definitely made a mistake because I walked out and the one thing, talking to your children about grief is one of the hardest things you'll do, because we see in the movies like, oh, they went to be with Jesus or they're with grandma. Don't say that.
Yeah.
You got to say the real.
Okay.
You have to say the real. So I should have said Donovan died. But I said Donovan was in a motorcycle accident, thinking he understood what I meant.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking we're on the same page. And I had already called, because I did not want to believe this to be real, a friend of ours whose husband was a police officer, to see if he could confirm it. And so when she called back, I said, she didn't want to say it. She couldn't say it.
You're in California.
Yeah, she was like, just stumbling over her words. And I said, honey, it's okay. I know that he died. Jordan then goes, what?
Oh, man.
I felt like I would just double stab in the heart. I was like, Erica, you're such an idiot. But I was just not in my right mind. And he just lost it. And I just grabbed him and just let him fall apart. And we just all just kind of cried.
So falling apart on that level while watching your child fall apart has to be very difficult.
Yes. Parenting while grieving, one of the most challenging things you will ever do. It's like you're in an ocean and you're trying to keep them afloat, but then also
you're drowning.
Come up. You are. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're all drowning, and
Yeah.
you're just kind of doing this dance. Same with Lewis. Like, I'm trying to hold him up. He's trying to hold me up. So we're all kind of just doing our own little drown and swim at the same time.
Yeah. Do you feel like life took a while to get back to normal? Because having children, a 12-year-old, you got to think like, okay, we still have to go through the normal routine, go to
Yeah, we
school.
gotta go
Like
to school next week.
Yeah. How does that?
Yes.
Ah.
So I have apologized to Kayla so often, and she and I actually had a really good heart-to-heart probably about a year ago, because I felt like I promised this girl the world, and then I brought her into my home when I was in the thick of my grief.
Yeah.
So I was like useless from my perspective. She doesn't see it that
I
way.
say you were more than she'd ever had.
Yes. So, I tried to make things as normal as possible for
Yeah.
them, but at night when the lights were off,
You couldn't.
I was falling apart.
Well, that was the only time that you had
Yeah.
by yourself with your own thoughts in your mind.
Yeah.
Yes. And they never stop.
They never
as you know,
stop. Yeah.
as you know, just trying to be a mom in general.
Yeah.
The thoughts never
They
stop.
never stop.
Yeah.
So it was just all of the, the darkness and the heaviness. I would just allow it to come over at night. And also, after dropping them off at school, I would go home because I couldn't sleep at night. I'd be up all night. So I'd just get back in bed, pull the covers over my head, just drown out the world. Lou traveled for work. So that's how I was able to stay in my misery for so long, because I
Yeah.
didn't have eyes on me.
Because Lou had to get up and go.
He had to
He
get up
was
and go.
out of town.
Yeah.
for like
So he
weeks
just
at
went
a
back to
time.
work.
Yeah, he'd
That's-
travel. So
Oh, so
Monday through
sad.
Thursday, I'd be by myself. So the days that I could get out of bed and make it to the couch, I'd just stare at Real Housewives, like marathons.
Yeah.
For me, that was a personal victory that I got out of bed and made it to the couch. Like, that
And
was
sometimes
good.
that is the victory.
It is.
Yeah.
And you have to take them as they
Yeah.
come.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd set my alarm to like 15 minutes before getting the kids. I'd jump in the shower real quick, change clothes, go get them. And Jordan would say, "Mom, what'd you do today?" And I'd lie my ass off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fake it till you make
Create
it.
That's
normalcy for him.
That's
Yeah.
it. And finally, it was right about the 1 year mark. I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And all the things started to unravel. And Lou really kind of started to pick up on it, that I wasn't doing so good. And he said to me, "I can't lose you.
Yeah.
I need you to keep it together." And I felt kind of betrayed in that moment, because I'm like, you are the one person on this planet who knows how bad I feel right now. And you want me to get my shit together? Like, how rude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I stormed off. And that night, again, in the shadows, I used to stalk Donovan's Facebook page, because he used to do these tributes for me, which were my
Yeah.
favorite.
I was going to bring those up.
so
Like
sweet.
for Mother's Day and just randomly. Like,
Yep.
he was a sweet kid. He would bring me flowers at work. Like, he was just so thoughtful. He was going to make a damn good husband.
Yeah. He,
He
would
was.
make these big posts about his mom.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a mama's voice.
Yeah, he
so I was on his Facebook, and I just kind of unloaded my story on his page, and I told my truth. And I said, how can I fix anyone else when I can't even fix myself? I mean, I was doing the ugly cry, like snot, everything.
Yeah.
And the next morning, Sharon called me from California, and she said, "How come you didn't tell me?" And I said, "Because I didn't want anyone to know." And she jumped on a plane, and she flew out, and we just started slowly but surely working on my healing journey. And it wasn't as fast as it was with Austin. I felt like I kind of clawed my way out of the darkness by my fingernails.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got to the top, and then it got a little bit easier, and slowly but surely I came back to not me before, but the new me.
Yeah.
And
Because you are a new you.
I am a new
Permanently.
me. Yeah.
You'll never go back to how you were before those phone calls.
No.
I think that's the hard part, is that people hope in their grief to eventually be healed enough to go back to how it was before.
Yes.
And that day doesn't come.
No.
Even when you're healed, you have to accept a newer person.
Yes, you do. And a whole new circumstances. Because it's like, what is this world without your children in it? You know?
And like every day to me, you should feel proud of getting up, even though now you say it's easier.
Yeah.
To me, it's never going to be, you're never going to have an easy day, right? Like you think about
Right.
your boys every day, but some people don't make it out of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true.
They do not make it at all. And so I've never been through that, and I hope to never go through that, but like, it's amazing that you have. And I pray that people who are listening, because we know we have a lot of mamas who also are grieving losses, can hear that it does get easier. But I'm also love that you had a support system. And if anybody's listening that doesn't have one, telling somebody can really save you.
Absolutely. You make your support system, whether it's like podcasts. I'm so grateful for podcasts now because, and social media, it's a blessing and a curse, but it does have access to so many support groups where you don't even have to leave your house. Yeah. Because that's a scary
and even
thing.
if you just
to
listen
go
or
in
watch.
person and sit down in a group and do the whole, hi, my name is this and my child died. I couldn't imagine sitting in like an AA setting almost is what it is.
Yes.
It's like a grief circle.
And some people do need that.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just need to read someone's story that you're like, wow, I relate to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or hear it in a space you can comfortably share your emotions without worrying about everybody else around you. Because I know some people don't cry in front of other people.
Right.
Like some people need to cry and they need the release, but they can't do it in a public setting with other people watching them. So
I trained myself not to cry. Because I knew already people felt so bad for me. And I'm like, if I start crying, then it's going to make them feel worse. Like, I'm a caretaker by nature. So it's like, okay, Erica, don't cry. So
I feel you.
I wouldn't cry.
Yeah.
But do you feel like you've turned that off for the convenience of other people instead of feeling
totally.
it?
Also, because I didn't want to feel it. So it was helping me, create that disconnect was good for me.
Because you're already crying in the dark. And so when it was to the light, you didn't want to also cry then because then it brought more emotion out. Like you were doing it alone, which felt good to you. But doing it in front of others would be hard because people are going to try to give you all this sympathy. And you're like, I'm tired of hearing the same thing.
Oh my God.
And it's exhausting, I'm sure, to hear the same, I'm
The
sorry.
same thing,
I can't imagine. It's like, well,
that's why
I didn't imagine either, but I was forced into it.
Yes.
That's why it's hard, like from the outside, I'm like, I don't know what to say. Like, I know how hard that had to have been. And that fucking sucks.
It does.
Like if honestly, like that's what you would say, like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Like that I had to
would
go
be like,
through
holy
that.
Shit, I'm so sorry. Like that's the worst.
Yes.
Right.
What would you suggest? What is some things that you feel is safe for someone to say if they're trying to offer peace to someone that's been through that, or even just comfort?
I would absolutely say there are no words.
That's what I thought.
There are no words. I'm so incredibly, my heart is breaking for you and what you're going through right now. Like, I don't know what this is like.
Yeah.
My heart is just breaking for you. Don't say that they have angels.
Yeah.
Don't say that God doesn't give you more than you can handle.
Oh, goodness. I like to tell people to just, like, what I try to do is just take space with you.
Yes.
So, like, I'm very great at listening. That's just what I do. And sometimes it's just taking space and, like, hearing what you have to say.
Right.
And be like, yeah, it's fucking hard. And I'm sorry that that's happening. But I can just sit here with you.
Right.
Yeah. Even if it's
Holding
in silence.
space is important.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So important.
So for a mama, because I'm sure we do have some mamas who have been through this, who are grieving privately, what would you suggest to a mom who is grieving for comfort, for peace? What would be step one if someone came to you and said, this has happened to me? What would you say, this is what I need you to do?
You have to allow the feelings in. You have to allow them. It feels like they're going to last forever, but they really just cycle through you. You kind of, grief, like everything else, ebbs and flows.
Not linear.
So you'll have your moments where you are numb. You'll have your moments where you get distracted, especially if you have other kids or your spouse or your job. Allow space for the time to come. The emotion will pass through you. Do the ugly cry. And you kind of have to maybe even set like an alarm, like, okay, I'm going to give 15 minutes, because that takes the edge off. It makes it manageable. Doing what I was doing, the stuffing, I'm not acknowledging this, the refusal, I like kind of put my hands up like, no, don't do that. It just prolongs it. You're just delaying the inevitable, because eventually that's all going to catch up with you.
Yeah.
So if you just allow a little time for it every single day, you're going to stay ahead of it. You don't want to be behind it.
What about for that mama that is feeling it but feels like she can't get up?
That's okay. Don't get up. There will be a day that you will get up. Even if it's just to brush your teeth and wash your face. That, like I said, is a victory in and of itself. Take those little small victories and let them build, and they will slowly grow into bigger victories.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to get up.
And you say like a support group.
Right.
Great.
Support it. At first I did not feel the greatest experience, I facilitate the groups now, so I actually do see safety in being in a room with people who understand.
Yeah.
Who have
You
been
don't
through
have to
the same-
talk.
Yeah.
Just opt out. Just listen.
Yeah.
And hear, because sometimes there's people who are like me. Like I'm 16 years in with Austin and going on my 9th year with Donovan. There are people who might have some, insight into the fresh loss.
Yeah.
And things that you might say, oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So just at least try it. And even if you don't want to go in person, do the online support groups, because then you don't have to put your face out there. You
Yeah.
can read comments. You can just watch a Zoom session, whatever it is.
And you have a podcast still uploaded, right?
I do have a podcast still
What's the
uploaded.
name?
It's under Healing Starts with the Heart. We're not recording anymore, which I'm very sad about. I love doing our podcast.
There's a lot of insightful information.
A lot
Yeah.
of information there.
Yeah.
There's still so much useful information.
Are you on Instagram or anything?
I'm
where
on
people-
Instagram, but under my own name, just Erica Honore. And social media, Sharon puts up grief stuff still under the Grief School, which there's still a lot of great information there.
You just seem
we'll
like
tag
a
it all.
comfortable person that maybe someone would want to reach out to.
Absolutely.
And I think that'd be great. We're going to bring Jay in.
Yeah,
to do
Daddy
some-
J.
All right, welcome, Jay. Daddy
Hello.
Jay's Corner.
Hi, guys. Oh,
How do you feel,
Lord.
Jay?
I'm not gonna lie. I was probably over there kind of crying, and I think that I think that you're just a strong woman for everything that you've gone through, and then for you to share your story is amazing. And then how your current thoughts and how you feel and how you've overcame that is super powerful. And it's interesting because today's Mexican Mother's Day. If y'all didn't know that.
When we're filming this.
yes, it is while we're filming. And so El 10 de Mayo, which is the 10th of May, is Mother's Day. So obviously I thought about my mom. I talked to her and all that. And then so my mom, so we lost our brother 15 years ago. And so today has been like, I've just been thinking a lot about my mom because it's Mother's Day. And then when you share your story, I can see my mom is still in the grieving stage. I don't think that she has really processed it. I think she's just put it in a closet.
Yep.
And she just deals with it on her own. Kind of like when you say when the door closes. And so I kept thinking to myself, how can I help my mom to potentially get to a place where you are? Because I know it impacts her significantly in different ways. And sometimes even me, I don't know what to tell my mom. Because yes, I lost my brother and I've lost other important people in my lives. And sometimes when people do tell you like, oh, it gets better, or, oh, you have an angel in the sky. Okay, well, I don't want him in the fucking sky. I want him here with me. Like, and sometimes I get upset when someone's like, but there's, like, when my dad passed away, he's like, oh, he's with your brother. Well, it would be nice if he was here, if they were both here, and I know that someone, they usually mean it with a great intent, but sometimes the words, it's just like, well, I don't want them fucking in heaven. I want them here.
Right.
And so I think it's super powerful. And I have recommended my mom to do therapy. And, she's Mexican and she comes from a generation where it's not normal or...
Yeah.
Therapists are quacks.
Yeah, it's like you just kind of, my mom, one time we try to break generational curses and I talked to her about certain things and she's like, why change things if nothing ever, or why talk about it if nothing ever changes? And I'm like, well, it can change. It's just we're not holding that boundary or whatever, someone is not fulfilling their end of the bargain and that's why it never changes.
Right.
And so as I was listening to you, I think to myself, how can I help my mom to get to that point? Because it would be extremely beneficial for her. And I know sometimes I try to talk to my mom and she does say like, that's like the worst thing ever. I would never want for anyone else to experience that because I remember, and that phone call, when you talked about your phone call, those phone calls are the worst. If you've never experienced it, I had one when my brother passed away. Well, obviously when my brother passed away.
How old is your brother and you?
Lord Almighty, I'm really bad with ages. So I am 24 and no, just kidding. Sorry.
I just caught it.
So my defense mechanism when I'm feeling sad or insecure is to make a little joke or something because it helps to loosen the mood.
Yeah.
But I'm 36, so he would be 41. So he's 5 years older than me. And so this was 15 years ago. So he was like, what, 25, 26? And those phone calls, I think that you just never recover from a phone call like that. It's the worst thing ever. I remember till this day, I was at work. I worked at McDonald's and we were like busy and my phone kept ringing and ringing and ringing. I was like, what the hell is my aunt calling me over for? And as soon as I picked up the phone, she was like yelling. And it was like one of those screeches that you just know somebody died. And I was like, oh my God, and your mind starts racing. And so it was my brother. And I remember like literally I just left work. I didn't even tell people. I just ran, literally grabbed my keys and ran to the car. And I was like going like 100 down the freeway. I called my cousin worked at another McDonald's, and I called the boss and I said, my cousin needs to leave. Like my brother died. I need to leave to New Mexico. And I remember we got to New Mexico. Literally, it's like an hour and a half. I think we got there like in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Like we were racing. I remember we were just sitting in the car and we were just numb, not talking, just kind of like, what the hell is going on? But I think that one of the thoughts that always, even though they told me that he had passed, my thought was like, well, maybe there's something, maybe there's like a miracle or there was
Not
something
true all the
wrong
way,
or something.
yeah.
But those phone calls are the worst. So I actually tell people, do not call me back to back because it scares me.
Yeah.
It has to be. Now that you said that, I think about that. Like, you got to think like, oh my God, why'd you call me just 3 times? Like, what
I do the
happened?
same thing.
It is extremely triggering because that's the first thing that kind of goes into your mind is like, Lord,
Something bad
Almighty.
happened.
Yes. And so I tell people, don't be calling me multiple times because it
Right.
scares the crap out of me. And I immediately start thinking, oh, Lord Jesus, who died? And so, it's very that. So I'm trying to think of how can I help my mom to feel and to get to a point where you feel, because I think it's amazing and just super powerful. And then I know Cindy talked about how then now as a parent, you think about that. And that is super scary. So Cindy mentioned I'm very morbid, and it's just because I've had a lot of 3 major people in my life die. I think that if anything, I need to go to grief counseling because I had someone that was very close to and that had passed. And I think I've definitely grown in my, hold on guys, my ears itching, sorry. In my grief journey, I think I've grown where now I'm not crying every day or just randomly crying. But I think it's super important to focus on that, but it's just really hard to process all of that.
That's a trauma response. The morbid thoughts are because of the trauma that you've experienced, so you can't get yourself out of that. So it's just like, and then when you love someone so much, like it's one of the worst things that you can imagine feeling is the loss of them. Right. So it's natural. So I would just stay in the present moment. Don't let your thoughts get too far ahead of you. Try to stay in, like, bring yourself back. When you feel them going away, be like, okay, come back to this moment right now.
I like that. Because sometimes my mind, I'm an overthinker, and Lord Almighty, I will literally start overthinking things. I'm like, what if I die?
Yeah.
Like literally, like
You start researching, like, I better get my kids' life insurance. I better
so
get
let
me.
me tell you about that. So, when we went to Vegas recently. And just kidding. L for loser. But anyway, we went for an award ceremony.
We lost.
We didn't win. And so
We won.
We won in life.
We won.
It's just a funny inside joke. We talked about it. But when we went to Vegas, I am very morbid, and I literally, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Like, I'm awake, and I have another opportunity to live and to keep going. And I think I am very traumatized I think I'm going to die like every day. I think that it's going to be quick. And I think it's also, obviously, I've lost important people. And then, my dad condemning me to hell because I'm gay type of vibe. So that's double the thing. But when me and Kyler, we've only traveled without the kids 2 times. It was the first time when we went to Colombia. The second time, then we went to Vegas because usually the kids are with us. And so I was at the airplane and I started thinking, what if me and Kyler die right now?
Yeah.
Like, who's going to take care of our children? I don't have a living will or a living trust. I don't have a will. We don't have life insurance. We have life insurance where our children would get that money, right? But then how would we delegate that? Because I'm Kyler's beneficiary and he's mine, right? Like, how does that work? And I think your mind starts that. And I remember when my brother passed away, funerals are expensive, literally like $10,000. And I mean, Yeah, I mean, because you have to pick everything. Like, and I think it's the most traumatic thing ever is to have to plan someone's funeral.
Oh my God, so
I don't
worst.
think that people really understand that, and so
And then the
when-
financial hit on top of the burden, and then them look at you and say, well, you also owe $8,000 to do this in 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very that. I remember picking my brothers. My mom blinked out completely. Like she lost all
She couldn't do anything.
like reality.
You're just
she
numb.
was just. I remember she would
Yeah.
just sit in her room and she was just sitting there, and people would hug her and try to talk to her, and she would just sit there and stare at the wall. She really didn't. She said she really didn't understand anything until she saw the casket going into the ground. And ever since then, my mom's claustrophobic now, because she's felt that my brother was alive and that he was getting trapped. And so now she has a fear of, she has claustrophobia now because of that. And so planning a funeral is horrible. I remember my mom and dad are divorced. And so I had to be like, who's paying for this? 'Cause
Yeah.
I owe $10,000 to this
Yeah.
place. And I had to step up and do that. And picking like your brother's last outfit and the songs and all
hard.
of that.
Yeah.
It's just really hard. And so one of the things that I think about is that as parents, we have to prepare for that, unfortunately. And I think that, my mom always said, I didn't plan to bury, nobody plans to bury a child, right? She's like, but you naturally assume that your children will bury you. But it's like, as parents, I think we also have to plan for that as well, to say, if I had to bury my child, what does that look like, right? How would I be able to handle that? And, life insurance. I think that funerals are like literally like $10,000. And that's like if you try to go on the cheap side, because there's the caskets. I mean, you can literally get one in gold. But I think as parents, I think it's important to think of stuff like that, because one of the things that I think is horrible, like, for example, anytime at my job, it was very flexible. I could take off the time that I wanted. But I think about some of the people who it's like a financial strain on them to have a funeral to pay for, and then they have to go back to work because they don't have life insurance. They don't have money, and
Even
it's just
taking off those few days is
too
much.
It's difficult. It's so difficult, and
Not a lot of people know you can do that. Get your kids life insurance.
Yeah. We had life insurance on Austin. Lewis had it through his job. He just kind of signed up for everything and didn't even realize he had it. Like,
Oh, wow.
when he called his company, they were like, oh, you have this, I think it was through MetLife. So then we made sure to put it on, like, Kayla, we still have one. Because you just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things, because we're so ill-equipped as a society with talking about grief, we're also ill-equipped with talking about funeral planning. I want to normalize people doing their funeral planning now. Like, I want to plan my funeral.
Yeah, me too. I'm
I'm trying to get my mother-in-law to, like, plan her funeral, get it all. That way you take the guessing game off the table. Would he want this? Does she want that? What song does she want? Because when you're emotionally and you're broken, you don't want to
That's
sit there
so
and
hard. Yeah.
sitting there. That's like torture. I did it for Austin, and then, like you said, $10,000, and then the lady's like, well, do you want 1 or 2 flower holders? And I'm like, my baby needs 2 flower holders.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I never went back to the thing.
$700 for that flower holder.
Yes,
Yeah.
because going to the cemetery would just tear me down. I'd have to go back home and get back in bed. So it's like, it's just normalize it now.
Yeah.
Do the things. The next time you take a trip without your kids, your thought won't be, what if? It will be, we have a plan.
okay.
Yeah.
They will be loved. They will be well taken care of.
yeah.
And they will find their healing journey. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I think I like that. I'm gonna have to work on that.
It's a slow start.
No, I think normalizing it would be nice. I think some of the pressure also, if you had your funeral planned, where it takes a little bit off, because to have to plan a funeral, worry about expenses and all that is hard.
Yeah.
My dad, when he passed away, he had life insurance, so I didn't know how it worked. And I remember they just got the policy, and the lady's like, okay, we got the money. Well, basically, like, you don't owe us nothing. It's getting paid, and so automatically.
It was such a peace of mind.
Yeah,
Right.
so
to
at
not
least
have
we
that.
didn't have to
Yeah.
do that. We just had to kind of plan the funeral and stuff. But I think it would be very interesting to normalizing it and speaking about it. And, like I was telling Cindy yesterday, I feel like some people say, I don't want to talk about, like, let's get together with my partner and say, if we die, what are we going to do? Because some people say, oh, if you speak it into existence, it's going to happen. And I mean, I'm sure, I don't like to talk about it, but I'm like, but what if it does happen? And then, like, you have to talk about it, and you have to build a plan. I think for me as an adoptive parent, sometimes I think to myself, well, it would be horrible to, like, for my children to lose my parents, but I feel like they already had that's happened to them once already. And so I always pray to the Lord, please just like, wait till they're older and they're big, or, like where they should be. Because I'm like, how painful would it be for them to lose both parents?
Yeah.
Because they're children of adoption. So they already have in essence. And then losing us. And I'm like, who would step up? And then there goes my mind is like, I have 5 children. So who would step up?
We would. Please. Your children will be cared for.
Right?
We're not going to think that, Jay. You're going to be a long life.
No, I know.
life.
And I'm
You're
like,
going to die of old age.
Hopefully, true.
I'm going to be singing that. What's that song on Coco?
Oh, my
Everyone
God.
knows Lolita.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, but I think you're amazing, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Everything, and I think it's so powerful that you. I don't know if it's bad to say, but I feel like you used your pain and turned it into like a purpose to help other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's just super powerful and super amazing that you're able to do that, because I don't know if I could.
I know.
And the reason why I tell y'all about life insurance, I tell Kyler, this might sound morbid, and it's not that I want millions of dollars for my children. I'm not going to change it, but I'm like, you're going to grieve. And would you rather grieve as a crazy rich old cat lady, or someone who doesn't have money, you have to get back to work. Like,
Right. No, it's
at least
true.
having that life insurance. I'm being overlooked.
He means crazy, rich, not crazy rich. Not like you're going to make a payday
No,
out of
right.
it, but like you're lost in your mind,
I
and you
mean,
also
like,
all of a sudden have a lot of money.
If you don't have the life insurance, if you don't have life insurance and you're not financially stable, you're going to have to go back to work. Whether
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Whether you're breaking down, you feel horrible, and you just want to roll in a ball and die on the floor, you can't, because you
Yeah.
might have other children, you
Right.
might have responsibilities. So you can't, and you have to go back into the world and go and grieve. And then there's people who have life insurance or are financially stable, and they get to grieve and just be at home and lay on the floor and not get up or anything. And
Yeah.
I think that is
It's important.
A benefit
It
of
is,
Yeah.
because
Important.
it's part of the process.
it's super hard to have to immediately go back to work after something like that happened, and you don't get to process that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think that every family should sit down and say, what would happen if you and I pass,
Yep.
right? How would that happen? A living trust, setting up life insurance, and then also planning to say, if our children leave before us, what does that look like, or anything
I
like
agree,
that.
Jay.
It's
And it
super
is
important, but it's going to be super hard. It's,
Yeah.
Lord Almighty, it's hard.
It is very hard.
As a parent, you can get life insurance on your children the day that they are born, and you can set in a rate from the day that they're born for them, and they can keep that plan throughout their entire life, rather than paying like $400 a month for some 50-year-old who is medically compromised, and they're like, you're paying for this newborn. Still, that rate of that newborn that they think has a sustainable life and such. I sold insurance. I was not very passionate about life insurance because it was just a morbid conversation. I actually only sold one life insurance policy in the entirety of my 2-year insurance career, and it was Donovan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was Donovan. He had missed a payment. The way that I found out, not that this is anything of my story, but it's how Erica and I connected. I
had
called first.
We were going through all of his text messages, and the phone rang while I had it in my hand, and we all got so freaked out. And Sharon is 10 years older than I, so she was kind of like my mom and my sister at the same time. So she just took it, listened to the voicemail, and called Paige right back. And she walked back in. She's like, "You're not going to believe this."
Yeah. 'Cause at first, the voicemail, I wish that we had the voicemail today, because I was like, hey, asshole, you missed your payment. I was like, where the hell are you?
Who is this State Farm lady?
Like, State
She's
Farm
so
just called
aggressive.
cussing him out. Like, I was like, where are you? You haven't been here in days. Now you missed your payment. Like, come on, bro. Like, you got to come up here and get this taken care of. And then they called back, and I remember, I very vividly remember my main boss coming in and being like, hey, somebody just called on Donovan's line, but it's a woman. And I was like, oh shit, it's his fiance, and she's about to cuss me out and wonder why the hell I'm calling her man. And I'm just the insurance agent lady. I'm just his friend. So I was like, oh crap. So I buckled in, and I was like, okay, here we go. And I said, hello. And it was Sharon. And she said, I'm so sorry. This is Donovan's aunt, and I just have to let you guys know that he's passed away and that we need to let go of his policies. And I think in their mind, I was just an insurance agent. I was just a State Farm agent. I was not somebody that had known him since literally Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I was definitely not someone who had been at the same recruiting office with him and had been friends with him, having conversations with him for months at that point. So I said, I am so sorry. I'm going to have to call you back. And I hung up and I started to cry. And I was like, oh my God, how do I handle this? And then I can remember walking into my boss's office and going, Donovan's passed away. And I spoke to his aunt. I know he has life insurance and we need to do something about it. So I then called back and I said, I'm so sorry, but he did get life insurance. And they were like, what? And I can remember
We were so shocked.
Lou being like, you never know what that kid was actually listening to, because they had told him to do all these things. And he was like, that's just crazy. Like, he was that responsible, but we would have never guessed it.
Right.
But,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that's how we met
Wow.
Paige.
That's how we
This
met.
is the other thing. Look at what a small world. They were at boot camp together. Then she sells him the policy, and then that brings us
that's
together.
wild. Crazy that things just.
And that was the roughest year of my life. That was the year that I asked for a divorce. And that Thanksgiving I spent with Erica and Lou.
Wow.
Yeah, they quickly became my family. Me and Danielle became good friends. They became mom and dad, and it was just like they were who I needed. I don't know if you want me to share this, but I was in a dark, ugly space at that point. I was living. I had my own house. I was working my ass off. I would walk to college because it was not very far. It was less than a mile away, and I had no way to get a car. I was working at Cracker Barrel at that point. I was a waitress. After Donovan, I did quit my insurance job. I was like, I can never do that again. I couldn't sit in the office and not feel him there. And it was just, there was something about it that I was like, I can't do this. And so I left and went to Cracker Barrel. And they would come sit in my section and take me to dinner and all the things. And yeah, they were like, we just became close in that moment. And I can remember one day they were pushing me to go to dinner. They were just like, let us take you to dinner. We really want to talk to you about something. We really want to take you to dinner. And then they came back and I was showing them the house. And I was like, look, I'd gone to Ross and I'd got myself a new bedspread. And I was like, look at me, like, I'm going to do this. And Lou said, can you sit down for a second? Can we talk to you? And they were just like, we just want to say like how grateful we are for you and for this relationship. And I think even Lou was like, you've given us memories we didn't have of Donovan, and that is just so special, and we want to help you. And I was like, okay. And they handed me a check for $2,000. I was like, go buy a car.
So sweet.
Wow.
And that was how I got my first car. My first car that wasn't repossessed. It was the way that I got to the next step of life. And so Donovan was that link for us. He was that moment. So even though I never
Donovan
met,
will carry on forever.
yeah.
Yes.
Now we're family.
Yeah.
They're
Oh,
stuck.
completely.
So
Yeah.
Completely.
yeah. Now, I mean, I go to the crawfish boil. Okay, I'm invited.
Let me know when.
I'm
I know. I was like, oh, I want to go.
yeah, and they
love
throw a
that.
party. That's one thing I did find out very quickly is their family is a unit.
Oh,
Y'all
yes.
really are a unit, and maybe it's just a Creole
A
thing.
unit or a cult? I'm not sure which. That's another episode.
We will not be discussing that today.
they're when you get around their family for a family that has been through so much.
Yeah.
They are just so full of love and life and happiness.
That's wonderful.
And it's really beautiful to see that you were handed such a difficult card. The fact that you went through that once is painful, but twice is unimaginable. And you still sit here today confident in the grief process.
Yeah.
And knowing that you're going to be okay, and continuing on for your other children, and raising
right.
children who aren't yours on top of it, on top of the grief, and then pulling in other people and helping them. And you're an incredible person. I've always said this.
You are.
I thank you for using this space to share that.
Yeah,
with other
thank you
people.
so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me
Yes.
here today. I really appreciate it. I have enjoyed it.
Well, Jay, thank you so much
Yes.
for your
Thanks,
insight.
Jay.
Okay, bye guys. I'm gonna go cry in the corner.
Well, thank you so much, Erica, for being here.
Thank
Your
you.
story is an important one to share, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
As you guys know, as always, keep those giggles going.
And the love flowing.
And until next time, Mom knows best.
At least she's trying her best.
That's right.